Story 1. The Sinister Santa. In the quiet, snow-draped town of Willow Creek, where streetlights cast golden halos on frosted sidewalks, Emily Harper lived a modest life with her 8-year-old son, Mark. 3 years ago, when Mark was just 5, their cozy, inherited home on the tranquil side of town became the stage for a chilling Christmas encounter that would haunt Emily for years. It was a crisp December afternoon, the air thick with the scent of pine and the jingle of distant bells. Emily, then 27, bundled Mark into his red coat and set off for the bustling Willow Creek Mall, their annual Christmas shopping tradition. The mall was a kaleidoscope of twinkling lights, festive music, and hurried shoppers. They darted between clothing stores, picking out sweaters for cousins and a sturdy wrench set for Emily's father at the hardware store. Mark's eyes sparkled with the magic of the season, his small hand clutching Emily's as they navigated the crowded aisles. After hours of shopping, Emily treated Mark to a McDonald's meal, burgers and a towering vanilla ice cream cone that left him giggling with a creamy mustache. As they exited through the mall's south entrance, a towering figure in a red suit caught their attention. A mall Santa, his beard slightly askew, stood outside, waving jovially at passers-by. His deep "ho ho ho" echoed in the chilly air, and Mark tugged Emily closer, entranced. The Santa knelt to Mark's level, his eyes crinkling behind wire-rimmed glasses. "What do you want for Christmas, little man?" he asked, his voice warm but oddly sharp. Mark, clutching Emily's hand, whispered, "A Nintendo Switch." Emily smiled, knowing the console was already hidden in her closet, wrapped in shiny red paper. The Santa chuckled, glancing up at Emily with a wink. "If you're good, maybe Santa will make it happen." His gaze lingered a moment too long, but Emily brushed it off, chalking it up to holiday cheer. The Santa stood, towering over them, and began complimenting Emily. "Your mom's a real looker, Mark," he said, his tone teetering between playful and unsettling. Mark giggled, unaware, but Emily's smile tightened. They exchanged a few minutes of small talk, holiday chaos, the stress of single motherhood. Emily, caught up in the moment, mentioned the overwhelming pressure of the season, joking, "I could use Santa's magic to get through this." The Santa's eyes gleamed. "Ever heard 'I saw Mommy kissing Santa Claus'?" he asked Mark, who nodded eagerly. Then, in a move that sent a shiver down Emily's spine, he leaned toward her, offering his cheek. Thinking it innocent, Emily leaned in for a playful peck, but he turned at the last second, his lips grazing perilously close to hers. She jerked back, heart pounding, his aggressive chuckle echoing in her ears. "Come on, Mark," she said, her voice tight, pulling him away. The Santa called after them, "Merry Christmas," but his tone carried a mocking edge. As they drove past the mall's back exit, Emily noticed the Santa was gone, vanished into the night. A nagging unease settled in her chest, but she pushed it aside, focusing on Mark's chatter about his ice cream. Back home, Emily locked the door, double-checking the bolts. She and Mark curled up on the couch, a Christmas movie flickering on the TV, its warm glow a stark contrast to the chill in her bones. But their cozy evening shattered when the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent, cutting through the movie's dialogue. It was late, too late for visitors. Emily's pulse quickened. "Stay here," she told Mark, who barely looked up from the screen. At the door, she called, "Who is it?" A deep voice, laced with false cheer, replied, "It's Santa." Her stomach dropped. "If you're the mall Santa, leave now, or I'm calling the police," she said, her voice trembling but firm. He persisted, claiming she'd dropped something from her bag, his tone syrupy with feigned concern. "What did I drop?" she demanded. "I don't know, miss. I'm not nosy. Open the door and I'll hand it to you." His words dripped with menace. Emily refused, her hands shaking as she dialed the mall's management office. The man on the line delivered a gut punch. "We don't hire mall Santas. Whoever's out there is on their own." Panic surged through her. She returned to Mark, trying to mask her fear, but her mind raced. Minutes later, she crept to the kitchen, raising the blinds to peer into the darkness. The window reflected her pale face, but beyond it, she heard a chilling "ho ho ho" from the shadows. Her blood ran cold. Someone was watching. She called the police, her voice low to avoid alarming Mark. Officers arrived swiftly, taking her statement as she stood shivering on the porch. They searched the property but found no one, only the lingering sense of violation. The police presence offered fleeting comfort, but a few nights later the doorbell rang again, late and uninvited. Mark was asleep, and Emily, alone in the living room, froze. She turned off the TV, heart hammering, and crept upstairs, locking herself in her room. The bell didn't ring again, but sleep eluded her. The next morning, as she stepped outside, a folded note taped to her door caught her eye. Typed and impersonal, it read, "I'll be blunt. You know who this is? I didn't mean to scare you. A long shift as Santa, then a pretty lady like you talks to me. Hormones go wild. You and your son are adorable, and I'd love to be part of your family. You felt our connection, don't deny it. I know where you live. Text me and maybe we can plan something. Sorry if this seems creepy, but when I want something, I go for it. Happy holidays." Ted, a phone number scrawled at the bottom, sent a fresh wave of dread through her. She photographed the note, hands trembling, and called the police. They took the note, promising action. Days later, a detective called, his voice clipped but reassuring. "He won't contact you again. If he does, let us know." Emily never heard from Ted again, but the incident left scars. Every Christmas, the sight of a Santa suit sends her heart racing, a reminder of the predator who hid behind holiday cheer. Story 2. The Thief in the Night. In the sprawling suburbs of Maplewood, where neatly trimmed lawns and glowing Christmas lights painted a picture of suburban bliss, 6-year-old Tommy Sullivan lived with his parents and older sister Lily. The family had just moved into a new house, its walls still unfamiliar, its creaks and groans a novelty. Christmas was their favorite time of year, a season of cookies, carols, and the promise of presents under a glittering tree. But one Christmas Eve, when Tommy was 6, a terrifying encounter would etch itself into his memory, a shadow that lingered long after the tinsel was packed away. Tommy was a restless kid, especially on Christmas Eve, when the anticipation of Santa's arrival kept him buzzing with energy. While Lily slept soundly, dreaming of sugar plums, Tommy stayed up, sprawled on his bedroom floor, playing a Star Wars game on his ancient PS1. The boxy TV cast a flickering glow across his room. The sound turned low to avoid waking his parents. Hours ticked by, the house silent except for the hum of the game and Tommy's occasional whispers to himself as he battled virtual stormtroopers. Around midnight, nature called. Tommy paused his game, tiptoed to his door, and cracked it open, wincing at every creak. He knew his mom would scold him for being up so late, so he moved like a ninja, slipping into the upstairs bathroom. On his way back, a faint rustling from downstairs stopped him cold. It wasn't the wind or the furnace. It was the unmistakable sound of pine needles shifting, as if someone were brushing against the Christmas tree. His heart leapt. Santa? The thought thrilled him, overriding any fear. Barefoot and silent, he crept down the stairs, each step deliberate, his small hands gripping the banister. The rustling grew louder, more distinct, as he reached the bottom. The living room was dark, save for the soft glow of the tree's lights and a narrow beam of light dancing across the floor, a flashlight. Tommy peered around the corner, his breath catching. Behind the tree, he saw a pair of legs, clad in dark pants, bending and shifting. A black bag sat on the floor, its mouth open like a hungry beast. This wasn't Santa. Santa didn't skulk in the dark with a bag that looked ready to swallow the family's treasures. Before Tommy could process it, a man stepped out from behind the tree, his face shadowed, but his eyes glinting in the dim light. He froze, spotting Tommy, then raised a finger to his lips, hissing, "Shh!" Yes, I'm Santa. Tommy wasn't fooled. This man wasn't the jolly figure from storybooks. No red suit, no snowy beard, just a lean, menacing stranger in a black jacket. Panic surged through him, and he screamed, a piercing wail that shattered the night. "Mom! Dad, there's a man!" The intruder's eyes widened, his composure cracking. He hesitated, glancing at the bag stuffed with ornaments and wrapped gifts, then bolted for the front door, leaving it swinging open as he vanished into the snow. Footsteps thundered above as Tommy's parents raced downstairs, his dad in pajamas, his mom clutching a phone. "Tommy, what happened?" his dad demanded, spotting the bag in the disheveled tree. Tommy, trembling, stammered, "A man! He was taking our stuff!" His dad sprinted outside, slippers slapping against the icy ground, shouting into the night. But the thief was gone. The police arrived, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they inspected the scene. The bag held half the tree's ornaments, handmade treasures from Tommy's grandparents, irreplaceable mementos of Christmases past. The back door bore the scars of a crowbar, its wood splintered where the lock had been forced. Tommy's dad later learned a nearby house had been hit the same night, the thief targeting sentimental decorations, a cruel twist that baffled the neighborhood. For weeks, Tommy slept with the light on, his Star Wars game untouched. The family installed a security system, and his parents double-checked every lock each night. The thief was never caught, but the memory of that night, of the man's cold eyes and the shh that wasn't Santa's, stayed with Tommy, a dark stain on his childhood Christmases. Story 3. The House Next Door. In December 2020, Claire and her fiancé, Ethan, settled into their charming two-story home in the idyllic neighborhood of Cedar Grove. The street was a postcard of suburban serenity, with picket fences, manicured lawns, and Christmas lights twinkling in every yard. They knew their neighbors by name, Tom and Linda across the street, the Wilsons next door, and Paul, the quiet bachelor to their right. Paul was polite but reserved, a man in his 40s who kept to himself, his life a mystery beyond brief driveway chats. But that winter, a horrifying discovery would shatter the illusion of safety in Cedar Grove. Claire loved the holidays, and that year, she was determined to make their home a festive haven. She and Ethan strung lights along the roof, their laughter echoing in the crisp air, though Claire noticed Paul's house was already aglow with meticulously arranged lights. It struck her as oddly endearing that a single man would go to such lengths, and she mentioned it to Ethan, who shrugged. Maybe he's just festive. But something about Paul's house felt off. His car hadn't moved from the driveway in days, and his blinds remained shut, day and night. Claire dismissed it. Maybe he was on vacation or working from home. Then one evening, while hanging their own lights, she noticed Paul's Christmas lights flickering wildly, not in a programmed dance, but in a chaotic, almost desperate pattern. "That's weird," she muttered, assuming faulty wiring. The next day, as Claire left for work, Paul's car was still there, his blinds still closed. When she returned, his lights were on, steady now, but the house remained sealed like a tomb. Over dinner, she joked to Ethan, "Paul's gone full hermit. Maybe he's hibernating." Ethan chuckled, but Claire's unease grew. That night, the flickering returned, more erratic than before. Ethan stepped outside to watch, his brow furrowed. "It's not normal," he said. Claire, feeling a mix of neighborly concern and curiosity, decided to check on Paul. "I haven't seen him in days. What if something's wrong?" Ethan nodded, though his eyes betrayed skepticism. Claire crossed the snowy lawn to Paul's door, her breath visible in the cold. She knocked, waited, then knocked again. Silence. Just as she turned to leave, the door creaked open, and Paul appeared, his face pale, his eyes darting. "Hey, Paul," Claire said, forcing a smile. "Your Christmas lights are flickering like crazy. Thought you should know." The lights, she noticed, were steady now, as if mocking her. Paul blinked, his expression unreadable. "Didn't notice. Thanks." His voice was flat, and Claire pressed on, asking if he was okay, noting his absence. "Just under the weather," he mumbled, shifting to block the doorway. Then from inside, a faint sound, a child's scream, raw and desperate, crying for help. Claire's heart stopped. Paul had no kids, no family she knew of. The scream cut off abruptly, and Paul's face tightened. "You hear that?" she almost asked, but fear silenced her. Instead, she said, "Well, feel better," and hurried back to her house, her pulse racing. Inside, she grabbed Ethan. "Call the police." Now I heard a child screaming in Paul's house. Ethan's eyes widened. "What?" But Claire was already dialing 911, her voice shaking as she reported the scream, emphasizing Paul's reclusive behavior in the flickering lights. She requested anonymity, though she knew Paul would suspect her. Police cars arrived within minutes, their lights painting the street red and blue. Officers entered Paul's house, and what they found turned Claire's stomach. In the basement, locked behind a padlocked door, was a young boy, no older than 10, gaunt and terrified. He'd been kidnapped from a town 2 hours away, held for 4 days in darkness. The flickering lights, the boy's doing. A prodigy with a knack for electronics, he'd rigged the Christmas lights from the basement's wiring, creating a distress signal whenever he saw movement outside, hoping to draw attention. Paul was arrested, his house cordoned off as evidence. The boy was reunited with his family, his ingenuity a beacon of hope in a nightmare. Claire and Ethan struggled to process the horror next door, their trust in their idyllic neighborhood shattered. Paul's trial revealed a predator who'd used his unassuming demeanor to hide unspeakable crimes. He was sentenced to life, but for Claire, every Christmas light's flicker now carries a whisper of that boy's desperate plea, a reminder that evil can lurk behind the warmest glow.